Let's give away 8 stories. Actually, I have 4, you have 4.
I do.
People that got hyper curious for one reason or the other, and it changed maybe. Well, I don't know your 4, so I don't know what it changed, but it changed something.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely their world. And I can go first here. So one of the people that I got very curious about in my research, because I specifically was like, I want to go off the beaten path. I also want to try to I want to learn some things in this process and find some stories of people that I don't use when I'm, in a session or talking to people.
Right.
And then there's a ton of famous examples that you just hear in a movie or whatever that people just have in their collection. So this was one I never heard. If you've heard it, bonus points for you.
Okay.
Have you heard of Dashrath Manji or Manhi?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Dave, this is an Indian man. He lived, I have it here, 1934 to 2007. So he's a laborer. His wife they don't exactly know how this happened. She might have been going to get water. She might have been delivering lunch or something like that. But she has to climb this mountain from this remote village in India. And she falls off the mountain and she passes away. He goes to war with this idea that because they're in such a remote part of India, they have to walk so far to get medical help. Because if medical help could have gotten there faster, his wife may have lived and may have survived. He spends the next 22 years single-handedly digging his way through that mountain.
Oh my gosh, no.
And he cuts the overall distance from 34 miles to 9 miles. So people can get medical help.
He dug a hole through
the
mountain.
He dug a hole through a mountain. He went out there with his little chisel and his hammer, and he said, I don't care how long it takes. He's a legend now. There's been movies that have been made about him. Obviously, at the beginning, he's getting mocked, right? It's like going and building an ark for a storm that you don't know is coming.
Yeah.
He just goes out there, and he digs his way through the mountain. 22 years on the back of this, suffering that he endures with the loss of his wife, but just says, this happened to me. I'm not going to let it happen to somebody else. And he cuts the distance. I just think that is so wild that to get to medical help, to get to the nearest whatever town before 34 miles, and just by going through the mountain, it now becomes 9. And I wanted to start with that one because the prompting was a place of grief, but also the shortcut. That is human innovation in so many situations. It's like, okay, we're dealing with this problem. If we can just think of a solution, we go from it being this big of a problem, we start to shrink it down. Yeah. And there's so many things that people can get curious about. And my mind did not naturally go to someone like Dashrath who says, I'm just going to go dig my way personally through a mountain.
Yeah, I am struck by the divergent thinking muscle that he displayed or that he used. What are all the ways to get from A to B? What are possible ways to get from A to B? Go over, you can go around.
Let's just make this mountain move.
If you can't move the mountain, how do you just go through it? Yeah.
Can't go over it. Can't go under it.
Can
Let's
I go
just
under
go ahead
it?
and chisel my way through it.
It's faster to go through it. I wonder what kind of tools he had and what he learned about rock. And wow, incredible.
It's, again, local legend. You can go look up videos. A lot of the videos that I found were in other languages, but you can see what he dug through.
Is the tunnel still there?
Oh, yeah.
Go through
you absolutely can go look at it, and people do videos in front of it so you can see it.
Really?
And maybe we'll include maybe a picture or a video here so people can take a look at that. But again,
I love it.
Dashrath Manhi. Go look him up. They nicknamed the Mountain Man.
The Mountain Man. That's so good. I'm going to start more, I think, a little more well-known, but give some of the background. Do you know who Marie Curie is?
I know the name, but tell me the story.
Marie Curie is a physicist and a chemist. She was Polish and became a French citizen. She was the first woman to be awarded the Nobel Prize. She is still the only human being to win 2 Nobel Prizes in different fields.
Amazing. I should know more about her.
So she has a Nobel Prize in chemistry,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a Nobel Prize in physics.
Wow.
And that just sort of stands on its own, and it is sort of a famous, like there's a loud and honor kind of thing here that is appropriate. But the curiosity that she demonstrated both to pursue those prizes, not as prizes, but just pursuing her work. She discovered radium and polonium. I don't know if I'm pronouncing those correct, but what she's known and famous for is radioactivity. Basically discovered new particles and new parts of the universe, the groundwork for radioactivity, radioactive materials. You can make all kinds of guesses and arguments about the directions that those paths have taken us as a culture. She died because of exposure, prolonged exposure to radium and the other particles that she was discovering and messing around with. She just didn't know.
Wow.
Right? She was like, what is this? How does this work? What could we learn from this? How could life in the world be better for this?
Yeah.
And it eventually killed her.
Once you win that first Nobel Prize, to go back or to, I don't know what that exact trajectory is, but to be in those two separate spaces, there's something very unique there.
We talked in an earlier episode about the Large Hadron Collider and particles and particle physics and all that, and I don't know what I don't know about these fields, but I wonder what these two camps know and think of each other, right? For Curie, all the people working for CERN on that Large Hadron Collider, how many like nods or tips of the cap, or man, I wish she had, but I wonder how much of her work led to that project, but other work as well. So her curiosity leading to, literally, it opened other worlds, right? Of particles and particle physics and time and power and radioactivity and isotopes, and just by being curious.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take us to the first African woman to win the Nobel Prize. So no overlap in the actual person.
Yeah,
we were a little nervous because we hadn't seen each other's lists. But first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize, Wangari Maathai. I believe I'm saying that correctly. So she lived from 1940 to 2011. And I also wanted to pick this one because I was raised in Kenya, and she is a proud Kenyan. So she goes to the States to study in like university, and then she goes back to Kenya, and she starts to realize they're cutting down a lot of forests, and there's like erosion in the soil. The farmers aren't seeing the same returns. Like there was also some political elements to this where it was like kind of deforesting lands that they shouldn't have been. There's some corruption going on, things like that. So she starts this green belt movement in 1977, and she ends up over her lifetime helping, and the work that she did, planting 50 million trees.
Whoa.
50 million
with an
trees.
M.
She's arrested, beaten multiple times because she would take on the Kenyan government. Actually, the president who I started going down this rabbit hole, the president at the time who ended up like arresting her and throwing her in prison, I rode the bus with his granddaughter.
Oh my gosh. No way.
But just to think about, one, she had a lot of resource potential. She could have done a lot of different things, but to go, I see, not only the country that I love and like this, Kenya is absolutely beautiful. Being on the equator, the type of just forests and trees that grow there, but then also the deforestation, the problems, the corruption, especially when you go back to like the 70s, 80s, 90s, for her to take that on head on as a woman, to endure the arguing and like the punishing blows of like the government. And then also one of the main ways she accomplished her goal of planting that many trees is she's training women to care, to plant trees, to care for the land. And in a culture where women weren't expected to do that, but they were expected to go hike and get the firewood, you can see how this changes that, right? Like they plant the trees, they don't have to hike miles to get firewood anymore. So she's like solving multiple problems in this process, and she's training women to do that and to cultivate the earth. And so huge shout out to Wanjeri Mathai. It's just like such a cool story. And I hope I'm getting her name exactly correct there, but 50 million trees is absolutely remarkable.
Yeah. I love the surprises I'm picking up in these stories that we're telling. A person is curious about one thing.
Yeah.
And is surprised by discovering, learning, unlocking another. And they may or may not follow that. You're like, okay, cool, that's over there. I'm still interested in this. But just the surprises, of, so is that a story about forestry? Is that a story about like environmental, eco-friendly? Is that a story about women's empowerment? Is that a story about politics?
Yes. Yep.
I love it. Yeah. Beautiful. I am going to bet money that you don't know the name Trad Cotter.
I don't.
You don't know Trad Cotter? Trad Cotter is a microbiologist and a mycologist, and I think he would say, I don't know him personally, but I'm kind of intrigued by him. I think that he would say his interest in mushrooms started around food. Just like, what are all the different kinds of mushrooms we could eat? And maybe, I guess I like these, I don't like these. I guess I could harvest some of these and sell them to restaurant. Maybe there's a business here and all that. But Trad Cotter, I think he lives in North Carolina and started looking for mushrooms to eat in the forests and areas around where he lives. And to hear him describe it, and I'm going to blatantly plug this, there is a YouTube clip of him telling this story called You Didn't Know Mushrooms Could Do All This. I think National Geographic put it on. He says it like something like this. I opened one door and there were 10 more behind that. And behind each one of those, hundreds. And I just got like all tingly,
That's like pull up a chair.
Yeah.
Perfect for this Rediscover series.
I mean, just a guy doing, I'm kind of hungry, or maybe I can make a little side hustle here. And to now where I think he would say I have lost count of, and now like Clemson University and some other universities are involved in helping him. On this clip, you'll see, but just off the top of the dome here are some things that they're discovering. Mushrooms as, of course, culinary tools, but the nutritious benefits of different kinds of mushrooms. I think we've read about some of the hallucinogenic properties of some kinds of mushrooms. Building materials. So they are experimenting with, again, I'm slaughtering this. You'll just have to look it up and see. But I think sort of dehydrating and like basically vacuuming and packing certain kinds of fungi down to blocks and bricks that are literally almost indestructible and have some of the same tensile strength of like steel.
Wow.
So we could just build buildings, and they're largely flame resistant, like they're retardants to flame. One that I'm still like trying to get my mind around, that if I'm understanding him and his research team right, that mushrooms or certain multiple kinds of fungi, if they are on or near or in contact with a virus or a bacteria, they can identify it, like almost like they put a marker on themselves of like, okay, so that's like, that's hepatitis or something. And then if that fungi or the spores or some connection to the fungi is introduced into an organism that has that problem, just like the mushroom identified and healed itself of the hepatitis, it will identify and heal the hepatitis in its host. So they're experimenting with individualized immune powerhouse therapies for, I have this pretty significant illness or sickness, and mushrooms and their spores can help me identify what that is. And by ingesting them or taking a pill or something, it identifies and heals the disease.
That is crazy.
You open one door and there's 10 and there's 100.
Embedded goodness.
That's right. You're here.
Okay. Boy on Slat. First off, amazing name.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I have a few quotes from him that I wrote down because I was watching some videos on him. This is current day.
Okay.
But he's 16 years old and he goes on a vacation to Greece. and it's a scuba diving trip, and he's like, yes, we're gonna see the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And goes under the water, and he's like, he's really disappointed. There's so much plastic. There's so many like plastic bags, water bottles. It's just way messier and grosser than he expected, right? So, couple quotes that I wrote down from him. He said, "Don't wait for someone to solve it if it's bothering you." And basically he goes, progress is not inevitable. It requires conscious effort. Why can't we just clean this up? That's his thought. So in that moment, he just goes, why can't we just clean this up?
Yeah.
Plenty of people have gone on a vacation or a trip or have seen problems that they don't let hook into their brain or their heart to the level that Boyan had this problem. Now, he also is extremely smart, so that's a key turning point in this story. But he asks the question, why can't we just clean this up? And then spends his life creating a system that now they're using on the ocean.
Wait a minute. Is this the big boats that like scoop it up and like...
That's exactly right.
Oh, I know his work. I don't know him, but no
That
way.
is his work. So it's cleaning a football field every 5 seconds.
Oh, get out. I love it.
And so there's also obviously the ocean is so huge, and they're tackling like one specific portion right now. If they had 10 of the boats that he's using, I think they could clear it in like the next 10 years or something.
The whole ocean.
This whole section.
An ocean.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa.
But so far they've removed 46 million pounds of trash. Just from a vacation moment.
Yeah.
Why can't we just clean this up?
Yeah.
I'm going to develop a system,
Yeah.
run it on some rivers, test it. Now we're working on the ocean. And then it doesn't stop there, because obviously one of the questions you're going to immediately ask if you haven't heard this before is, well, what do we do with all that stuff?
That was my question.
Right? Can't just like, it's out of the ocean, but now it's in a landfill. Yeah. So they're repurposing as much as they can. They've done different drops, like they made sunglasses that people can buy, and they're trying to figure out the most sustainable ways to turn that stuff into products that are going to be sustainable, that they can then resell and get out. But I just thought 46 million pounds of trash is insane. Figuring out a system to clean a football field's worth of trash every 5 seconds is basically what you need if there's any hope of,
some kind of
it's got to be that kind of scale. And I'm not even going to attempt to explain what he created, because you should just go look it up. You can watch videos on YouTube of what that process is like, and how he's using the tide essentially so that it's like, I'm not going to do it justice, so I won't even try. But I thought those quotes were so perfect. The way that he said progress is not inevitable, it requires conscious effort. There's something about that when you even look back at past history, where there's almost like no innovation for entire blocks of time, where people would just assumed like this is how it's going to be. And then somebody's like, well, what if this was different? Or what if we just tried this? Or I'm going to start tinkering with this. And a lot of problems are solved by people who just ask his question, why can't we just clean this up? Or why can't this just be different? And you can tinker with that question all day.
You're right. Well, you notice too is the why, the trifold why, the quad why, the people that are curiosity and innovation coaches talk about the multiple whys. Why is this? Why did that go this way? And I think essentially something in there, he's doing that. How did this get here? Why is this not being? And one thing leads to another. Wow. Yeah. I love how helpful it is. It's like beautification.
Boyan Slat, 16 years old too at that time. So just such a, you're impressionable, you're seeing the problem, but to turn it around at 16 and go, I'm just going to give my life to this, or at least the next significant years of my life to this problem.
I love too that he was kind of started with an intent to see a beautiful thing in the creation, in the world, in the cosmos, and was like, oh, it's hurting, or it's, something's wrong.
Maybe that's a trend here. My last one doesn't follow this trend, but I'm just thinking about the three that I picked. Dashrath loses his wife. Boyan is on a vacation and is like, this isn't what I expected. Yeah. And then even Wangari her leaving the country, coming back, sort of new lens, new perspective, new eyes, deforestation.
Yeah.
There's something to that where your life kind of tells you a little bit of a direction where, hey, you're seeing this for a reason.
There again, like we were talking recently about the difference between play and fun. Like that play can have this like rehabilitative, redemptive, like it's helpful, right? And fun can be regenerative to a person, like for a break, but the generative power of play and curiosity is almost always exponential and significant. It leads to flourishing. It helps things get better. And it's hard to say that about fun, I think. I want to tell you about someone who's very dear to me. His name's Dave Evans. You know Dave Evans?
I don't.
You might know him by his stage name. He's The Edge.
I do know The Edge.
You know The Edge?
Yep.
Dave Evans, a.k.a. The Edge, and his insatiable curiosity in the sonic world. There is, I think it's Premier Guitar or Guitar Player, one of those organizations does something called a rig rundown on YouTube where they pick musicians and they or their roadie or their tech or somebody will basically walk you through. And The Edges is like an hour and a half long and it just delightfully comes out as his tech Dallas walks this guy through. Well, that's what this pedal does, and that interfaces with this one in this way, and here's the amps that we use for all that. And so if you're looking for like a geek out or just a deep dive into a world that you either love or you know nothing about, but someone that's very good at what they do, but in a very unique way they go about it, I can't recommend this enough. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his and of theirs, so in that sense it's easy and a certain kind of delight, but I would recommend it to anyone. I think a backstory about The Edge that I love is that he comes from serious, pretty conservative faith, and they were in high school when you two discovered rock and roll. And so they hear this sound, and he just thinks and experiences the world very sonically. And so they hear these sounds, punk rock, rock and roll, and it just like hit something.
Lights them up.
Yeah, resonated, literally resonating with them. So they form a band, and they're in, Larry Mullen Jr.'s kitchen practicing, and it's kind of going okay. And the pastor, one of the pastors in their life, says, well, boys, like you can't love God and be in a rock and roll band. And they were so serious about the flavor of faith that they had at the time that they took 2 weeks off and individually went and discerned, prayed and fasted, if you will. Can we love God and be in a rock and roll band? And they said they each came back individually and it was all systems go. But the way that I think it's either Edge or Bono said it, they said there is no contradiction.
Yep.
That loving God and loving rock and roll, they were able as teenagers to kind of sniff out and sniff through, wait, is this God's, like, did God have anything to do with these sounds and making music and the ability to create and cultivating the culture, on and on. And that I just love so much that their inherent love of this stuff, but then particularly The Edge's curiosity about sound and effects and rhythms and how different sounds make you feel. He realized pretty early on, I'm playing in God's world and it's okay. Like there's a cultivation piece that I can bring to this that will help. And I, for one, have been deeply blessed by his work. Just some of the sounds that he comes up with have been wonderful. They're beautiful. They're challenging. They're interesting. So I'm thankful for Dave Evans' curiosity.
I love that. I think musicians, because of the time we live in now and the amount of behind the scenes kind of footage you can get, is a great place to watch some and let your curiosity bubble. One of my favorite videos I've seen was just Coldplay, I don't remember what album it was for, but writing their album, they painted an entire room, like maybe the size of this studio, all white. And so when they would just play, but even like the guitars and everything, they would just write their lyrics on the walls, on the piano. They would just like, we're just jamming, we're thinking, and we're writing. And the process of watching that and then the room fill up, and you're just like, getting inside their brain, and it was just but there's so many videos like that. I've watched a gear video of John Mayer where you're like, dude, you say that you hear something different in those two tones, and
the Edge one is full of that. He's like,
what?
Dallas is like, well, he pulled the plug for this guitar. He didn't like something in it, so he changed the transistor inside, like the filament inside the plug, and he played it, and he's like, oh, there it is. And Dallas is like, come on, man. Like, what? He just keeps saying, this cat, man. Oh, this cat.
I love it. That level of mastery and tinkering is always
He holds
incredible.
the pick a different way because there's a grip on some of the picks that he uses. And when you strike the strings with the grit, there's a different sound than if you hit it with the smooth side of the pick. He's listening for that kind of stuff.
Wow. This is a really good one. Well, my last one is Julia Child.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Very famous for basically cultivating food television.
Yes.
And I didn't know much about her, but what I really liked about her story, so when she's early and younger in her life, she grew up in a house that was fairly well off. They actually had a cook. So she's not in a situation where she's like, you know, what you might expect. She's around cooking all the time. Someone else is kind of doing that. She's always loved food. She loved eating. But then she gets into her 30s. Her husband actually gets a job in Paris. And so they move over there. And she just starts falling in love with French cooking. And so late in her 30s, she becomes famous for the things that she's now famous for. So she goes to Cordon Bleu, and in her late 30s learns French cooking, and then basically becomes the evangelist to all of America about French cooking. And I love the age at which she chose to get that curious about it, because she could have just phoned it in. I mean, you're in Paris, just take in the sights, have some fun. But instead, she goes very deep into play, and then on the back end of that comes back to the States. She, while she was over there, wrote this very famous cookbook. But to then come back, basically be the face of food television and really pioneer that space. As I've continued to allow myself to get more curious, food is one of the top things I find myself watching videos about. So just learning a little bit more about Julia Child was very interesting to me. So the if you're interested, the cookbook was Mastering the Art of French Cooking, so you can go check that out. But yeah, one of the most beloved kind of culinary TV experts.
Yeah. And
hilarious too. She is very funny.
Yeah.
And she's 6'2".
Did
you know that?
No, I did not. I did not.
She's very tall, and so she makes a lot of jokes about like how much she likes food and how much she needed food because of her
sort of an so identifiable voice, like her tone and her accent, and I just like, she was so identifiable. Like, oh, there she is. There's Julia. You can hear her before you know it's her. So great. Oh, that's cool. My last one is George Washington Carver.
We almost had an overlap on this one.
Oh, George Washington Carver. Great minds think alike.
Yes.
A divergent thinking beast. I mean, his divergent thinking muscle. I want to talk with him and just watch him do that. Like, so he is credited with at least 300 uses for the peanut. And uses can also be said as inventions and patents. So I think it gets blurry there somewhere how many hundreds of patents he had, how many hundreds of inventions he had, but sort of incredible. Just an overwhelming capacity. His curiosity led to hundreds of uses and inventions and patents for one thing, a peanut. His parents were enslaved in the South. His father died, I think, certainly before he knew him, He and his mother were kidnapped when he was like 6 weeks old, and he was found and returned to his owner, and his mother never was. So he grows up as an orphan in the South, the child of enslaved people, and has done, I think it depends on who you ask, but he has been instrumental in the transformation of the South's economy.
Right.
The cotton fields, the use of cotton, the harvesting of cotton workers, right? I mean, the peanut, it just goes and goes and goes. And there's something, so there is a love and admiration and just simple, incredible respect for the capacity of his muscle and his ability to do this divergent thinking. But then you add to it the pain and the injustice from which he was coming, and that he unleashes that potential on the very place and people where he was raised or where he's from. There's just something, I guess in one sense, what we've said before, that curiosity like that could lead to that kind of impact, but a certain kind of impact, like generative, redemptive, in the face of people who oppressed and hurt him and may have even literally killed his parents, you know, and that he is about the goodness and flourishing of his people where he's from and whoever it might impact. You know, it's incredible.
You can imagine a much different story.
Yeah.
Of just, this is how bad it all started, so it's got to be all bad.
Yeah. And it would be sort of just, right? If he was like, you know what?
Oh,
like,
no one would bat an eye
You'd
at
be
that
like, oh,
story.
that's fine.
It makes sense that that's how you see everything.
Incredible.
But to go that deep, and I love that a couple of your stories are, we're studying this thing and it opens 10 doors, then 100 doors. And just to go something as simple as a peanut, which most of us would just take, maybe crack open, take a nibble of, and we'll call it a day. But to go, no, what about this?
He's just
and
getting
this,
started.
And this.
And peanut butter was not one of them.
Oh, that's an interesting.
That's another tidbit, right?
All right.
300 uses for the peanut.
And the one that we love.
Peanut butter. Like, nope. He's like, give me something hard.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love all of these. The one thing before we pressed record on this episode that I felt like we were going back and forth on, and I think we should talk about here before we close it out, is you mention some of these names, and it's like, I even feel the gap between me and a Nobel Peace Prize winning whoever they are.
Yeah.
This is just like, that is a huge gap. And I think for both of us, we would go, yes, there's also a level of, again, I come back to this word invitation in other people's stories to go, wow, look at what they tinkered with and what it unlocked. And what if I maybe just got curious about anything? And so more than going analyze the gap between where they are and where you are, I think it's, for me at least, a reminder of essentially just what's possible and how deep you can go on any given thing and the goodness and the beauty that is found there. What does it do for you when you hear these stories?
Yeah, lots of things, but I'm struck by what I think they would each say to what you said. I never met any of them. That you saying, yeah, but I'm here and you're there. And they would say, well, me too.
Right.
I mean, so when they first heard about a peanut or radium or deforestation, like that's just when it started. And I think they would each say, I was just curious. I was fascinated by it, and I kind of couldn't put it down. And when I wanted to put it down, I think you said resilient or persistent, you know, it just kept itching. I think they would each say, I just kept being curious about it. And I'm just wildly encouraged by that. You know, again, there are two kind of postures or worlds in which you can be when you start down this play and exploration kind of path. That you are either outside of your own power and ability, endowed with certain gifts from a creator or a god or genetics or whatever, or you're not. And so the work is just discover, like, what is your superpower thing, And if you don't have an interesting one, I'm really sorry. It's just the genetic lottery, and so you just kind of help the people that have the gifts. And thankfully, that's not true. It's
Right.
categorically untrue that every human has this capacity to do divergent thinking and be curious. And I think that's a game changer, that sitting here thinking about the gap between these stories that we've told and ourselves, the people that they happened to, the stories that we're telling, they would say, "What are you talking? I was just curious about it," and kept being curious about
Well,
it.
one of the things that I incorrectly do in when you're comparing, that you can easily sort of
Sure.
shift and flip on its head, is you go, here's where I am today and here's where they are today. Well, just flip that to here's where I am today and here's where they were on
that
a day
Yes, good.
when that started.
That's right.
Because the beginning of their story,
Right.
So I come from a background of video production, right? One of the easiest ways to be encouraged to start your video or podcast journey is go to your favorite YouTube channel and sort by oldest.
Nice.
Go watch their first video, not their latest
That's
video,
good.
right?
Right.
Because then it's like, okay, well, I'm comparing myself to somebody who's put in 4,000 episodes worth,
Right.
The hours,
inappropriate.
the time. It
It's
doesn't,
a bad
of
comp.
course,
Yeah.
that's a bad comp. So just to go, this is going to compound over time. And if I'm interested and engaged and present today, and I do that consistently,
Yeah.
it's bound to happen,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And even just going back to the boy on slat analogy, I'm going on a vacation. Who's to say that on that vacation, I don't go scuba diving and get hit by this, and that changes the entire trajectory? But to be open to that, that's the other piece I really wanted to mention is it's
So good.
to live open-handed is a posture that you can take to say, because one of the mistakes that we make is we take ourselves so seriously. This is my identity. I am this way, or I'm tackling this, and the sort of, you could call it randomness or maybe fate or God, those moments that can change everything.
Yeah.
It's often an invitation to maybe take yourself a little less seriously or try
That's right.
something completely new that's going to require a level
That's
of,
right.
of playfulness and curiosity that you didn't previously have. And
That's
so,
right. And it's giving people a reminder about goodness. Again, and we just keep coming back to these 2 or 3 very simple things. You're much more likely to stay on that resilient, persistent path of curiosity and play and exploration if you are reminded more often than less often that there is ridiculous amounts of goodness in the world versus we kind of found everything. The world's kind of efficient at best. And so again, these 1, 2, 2.5 punches combined of inherent, ridiculous, excessive goodness in the world. You can be curious about it literally forever and not discover it all. You have been invited to do that as your human work, and it's going to require curiosity and divergent thinking precisely because it's that kind of good. It's not just sitting there. What fun would that be? Oh, fun. What kind of play would that lead to versus like I'm going to have to start moving stuff around and asking questions and taking risks. And if I believe there's goodness to be found there, I'm more likely to get up and try it again the next day, even in the face of oppression and sadness and despair and darkness.
it's all a rediscovery process. So if you're piqued, your interest is piqued as you listen to Dave and I talk about all this stuff, you can go to the link in the show notes. We have a rediscovery 5-day journal that you can check out. I would encourage you to do that with a friend or a couple of people in your life. I also wanted to mention, we've been talking about and getting excited about this idea of just doing a Zoom call with people. So you listen to the content and then maybe we just host something where we talk with the people that were impacted by this. I think it's really good to get around other curious people or even other stuck people. Maybe you're in a place where you're like, I don't even know. You don't have to come with anything. It's just you are looking for some like-minded folks like this. It's who I want to hang out with.
I'd love that.
So, man, it's a good world out there. Stay curious.
I wanted to film just like a quick video and say thank you. If you made it this far in this Rediscover miniseries, it means a lot to Dave and to myself. This was really just an experiment. It was us as friends talking and saying, what would it be like to do something a little different, to talk about curiosity and divergent thinking and values and all this stuff. And so, thank you for being on the journey with us the last 8 episodes. This is the conclusion. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to tell you, if you go to myundercurrents.com, that's the best place to connect. There's the 5-day journal that we've talked about a couple times in previous episodes. You've heard us mention it. And then there's also ways to get connected. So the awesome work that Dave does with the center. And if you want to do a core value session with me and get some coaching, or maybe you have a cohort or a group, or you want to sign up for a Zoom call, all that stuff you can do over on myundercurrents.com. There's a link in the description. Thank you for watching this 8-part series. If it spoke to you in any way, we would love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. That'd probably be the easiest way. Dave through email. And we would love to hear those stories. Share it with a friend who may find this content valuable. And like we always say at the end of these episodes, it's probably already been said in this because I'm tacking this on just to the end, but like, it's a good world out there. Stay curious. And again, it means the world that you hung with us for all 8 of this Rediscover miniseries. Special shout out to Dave for doing this with me. And more content to the YouTube channel coming soon, but it will probably change the style, and things are continuing to evolve as to like what we're going to talk about and all that. So more on that later. But all right, peace and love. Bye.